Hello Year 5, I hope that you are having a good day. Today's maths lesson is going to be all about rounding decimal numbers. We have done this before, we did a Zoom lesson on it just before Christmas, so hopefully this is a nice bit of revision for you. Make sure you've got a sharp pencil and a ruler, and you may also need a place value grid today to help you. Your starter today is looking at number bonds to 1. You may want to use the number line below to help you. Remember that each of the intervals, the value is 1/10, 0.1. So have a think and fill in the gaps. So 0.5 add what equals 1, etc., etc. Pause the video while you answer the question. Just to recap how we round numbers, we'll start with whole numbers, or we know them as integers, before we move on to decimals. So if I give you the number 341 and ask you to round it to the nearest 10, how would you do that? Can you pause the video and explain to somebody around you, to your pet, to a plant, to the wall, whatever, just make sure you're speaking out loud and explaining how you would round the number 341 to the nearest 10. When I'm rounding to the nearest 10, the first thing I do is identify the digit in the tens column. So you can see that I've underlined it in red. My 4 is in my tens column representing 40. But I'm not worried at the moment about that digit. When I'm rounding, I need to look at the digit to the right. So I've circled the 1 in the ones column in blue. So this is why you might want to use some coloured pencils today to help you. Now this digit, number 1, will tell me whether I'm going to round up to the next 10, to 350, or round down to the 10 that I've just passed, which would be 340. The digit number 1 is less than 5, so the numbers between 0 and 4 we round down, 5 to 9 you round up, so I'm going to round down to 340. This should be very familiar to you. Now, can you apply that method to rounding to the nearest 100? So think about the number 863. It might be useful to think of the 100 before that and the 100 after that, and explain to somebody around you how you would round this number to the nearest 100. I'm sure you've all correctly identified that 863 rounds to 900. I look at the digit in my hundreds column, the 8, but I move to the digit to the right, which is the 6. I know that 6 rounds up because it's greater than 5, and that takes me to 900. Now this is a very common mistake that lots of people make, especially when you're dealing with numbers that have got lots of digits in them, so getting into the thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. This person says that 6,508 rounded to the nearest 1,000 is 7,008. Are they correct? Why or why not? Can you explain? Hopefully you've all recognised that actually the nearest 1,000 is 7,000. When we're rounding, we must always have a 10, 100 or 1,000. And the best way to remember is it must always have 0 as its final digit. So the fact that we've got our 8s in the ones column at the moment is not correct. What about this person? Are they correct? Explain to someone or something around you. I imagine that you recognised that instead of rounding to the nearest 100, this person has rounded to the nearest 1,000. So make sure today that you are rounding to the correct place value column, because that is where sometimes silly mistakes can be made. If you think you would like a little bit more practice to consolidate what I've just gone through, rounding whole numbers, you can pause the video now and have a go at filling in this table. But if you feel confident, you can carry on with me now to rounding decimals. Here are the answers for rounding whole numbers. Pause it to mark or move on with me to rounding decimals. Now we're going to move on to decimals and look at rounding to the nearest whole number. So can you pause the video now and just explain to somebody around you or out loud to yourself how you would round this decimal number, 6.35, to the nearest whole number? So remember, if you're finding this a bit tricky, the first thing that you can do is identify the whole numbers either side of this number. So 6.35, the whole number that comes before it is 6, and the whole number that comes after it is 7. So I know my answer is going to be one of those. Now for my whole number, I've got a digit in my ones column, 6, but I'm going to move to the digit to the right, the 3, and that's going to tell me whether I'm going to round up or down. 3 is less than 5, so I'm going to round down to 6. So just another couple of examples. Rounding 4.7 to the nearest whole number. My 4 is in the ones column. I look to the digit to the right, my first decimal place. 7 is in the tenths column. I know that 7 rounds up because it's greater than 5, so my whole number is 5. Have a go at rounding 14.5 to the nearest whole number. How did you get on? Can you explain how you did it? Okay, it's your turn now to round the following decimal numbers to the nearest whole number. Pause the video while you answer the questions. How did you get on? If you went wrong, can you explain your mistake? One of the reasons it's important to know how to round numbers is so that you can estimate certain measures. So for example, if you were trying to buy meters or centimeters of carpet for your house and you wanted to make an estimate, this is where you could round numbers so you can do the calculation in your head. So have a go at rounding these lengths to the nearest centimetre. How did you get on? Now you need to estimate the answer to these questions using rounding to help you. So for each of the numbers you want to round them to the nearest whole number and then do the calculation. Did you estimate by rounding accurately? We are going to move on to rounding to the nearest tenth, or as it's also called, rounding to one decimal place. Can you explain to somebody around you how you would round the number 4.64 to the nearest tenth or to one decimal place? So the number line demonstrates that the tenths either side of the number 4.64 are 4.6 before it, 4.7 after it, and then using the number line we know that the digit 4 is less than 5, so it's going to round down to 4.6. Now, can you have a go at rounding 2.47 to the nearest tenth? I've placed the number line there to help you. So when I'm rounding to 1 decimal place, I look at the digit in the tenths column, which here is 8, and then I move to the digit to the right, which will tell me whether I round up or down. 5, so I know if it's 5 or more, I round up. So my number will be 1.9. Explain to somebody around you how you would round £9.46 to the nearest 10p. So these are the results from a long jump event. Again, the best thing for you to do is to copy down the table neatly with a ruler, please, in your books. And then you need to round each of the distances to the nearest whole number and then to the nearest tenth or to 1 decimal place. Pause the video while you answer the questions. You should now be able to apply what we have learnt so far to rounding this number, 8.216, to the nearest hundredth, or we also call it rounding to 2 decimal places. So have a go at explaining how you would do that. Were you correct? Have a go at these fluency tasks. Read the instructions carefully, and with 6A and 6B, can you please provide a written explanation for your answer? Pause the video while you answer the questions. And now try these ones. Pause the video. Here are the answers for the relate task. Have a little look. If you went wrong, can you explain where your mistake was? If you're not sure about any, just ask one of your teachers in your next Zoom lesson or send them a message. Have a go at these reasoning challenges. It might be easier to explain to somebody around you whether you think these people are correct or not, but I would like you to also write your explanation down as well to make sure that you are practicing your reasoning skills. Pause the video while you answer the question. Were you correct? What does your explanation look like? If you're finding it hard to answer the reasoning questions, you can always send me your responses and I can talk you through them. Here is your final problem-solving challenge for the day. So we are looking for 2 different numbers here. Make sure you read the clues about the numbers very carefully. It might be worthwhile using a place value grid to place each of the digits so that you don't get confused about which place value column the numbers are going in. Pause the video while you answer. How did you get on? Were you able to find all of the possible answers?